Well, hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome to, well, something a little bit special, a bit of a special event. If you missed the previous video, I kind of went through how we're pivoting back to previous content. Shorter form, daily videos, shouting out lots of different games. We don't need to unpack all that, but I also floated the idea of doing, let's call them like special events, right? So maybe looking at a bunch of demos or something like that. And in this case, I want to cover the Nacon Connect. I haven't really covered any of these things before, so feedback will be welcome. I'll chuck up B-roll, etc. But it essentially is one of these expo online shows that a lot of companies have been doing on a yearly basis as a replacement for all the collapse of in-person expos, right? It's strange that this makes me feel old, but you know, E3 used to be the absolute shining cornerstone of the game industry events. And you know, that was why a lot of the journalists got into gaming, because they wanted to be at E3 covering all the new games, and internet and just general remote engagement in the gaming space changed everything. And that's why you see a lot of these, you know, money houses, the big AAA publishers and first party events as well, like Sony and Microsoft and all that, doing these expos to sort of fill the gap. Nacon on the back end, still a lot of money, right? Still a very big company, but in the gaming space, they very much dabble in the interesting and kind of emergent middle ground, which is the double A kind of publishing house. So anyway, that's a little bit of a setup. Maybe you're not across this. I often miss these events, or, you know, I only find out about them a couple of days later, but I feel like this could be something I could work in, because it works as a cool little hype train showcasing a bunch of stuff coming out. I think this is the first time they've done this. So yeah, feedback welcome. I've recorded the whole thing. I've already watched it, and we'll just go through and I'll share some thoughts and share some footage with you. Look, it's probably worth noting just really quickly, this isn't the only peripheral mini ad that they put in there, and apart from some sort of touch screen, I don't really know why you'd buy this unless maybe it's cheaper or whatever. I mean, I'm not trying to turn the channel into business analysis, but I do find that stuff interesting, and I wonder how lucrative the hardware back end is. I don't know, maybe that's something I can dabble in. I probably have contacts that can set me up with stuff like this, I don't know. But again, that'd be more if people are interested in knowing, but to me, it's more interesting that they're kind of pushing hardware. This will come up later in the video, but what would I know? I'm not a smart businessman, I'm not a smart person, full stop, but I just thought I'd comment really quickly. I don't really know who's not going to buy either, you know, a PS5 Gucci controller, a stock standard Xbox controller, because you can get all them pretty cheap, or, you know, some dog shit Razer Mad Cats, or I don't even know who it is, but that was always the third option, right? Some crap controller because you couldn't afford the good one. No offense, but you know, someone always ended up with that fourth controller when you were playing couch co-op. So I don't really understand the money in there, but happy to be wrong. Yeah, look, this is the pre-show, so I'll try not to spend too much time, right? But I just find it all interesting. Tiebreak, tennis game, don't know. I've never played it. Maybe I'll reach out to contacts and look into it. It could be fun. I remember him playing, you know, some sort of Sega, like Virtua Tennis or some crap on the Dreamcast and really enjoying that. But they're doing mini trailers for some stuff at the beginning. But yeah, I can't really say much on this. Okay, so this is already on my kind of watch list, my wish list, Architect Life. I think it's coming out a little bit later this year, so I was aware of it. Interesting that Nacon's tapping these kind of life sim games with varying degrees of success. I think they have like a Cooking Life, which I covered. I really like that. I might go back and have a look. And Ambulance Life, which we've talked about. A burning pile of mess of a game, but I like it anyway. It's weird, it's strange. So this looks appealing. It's worth, you know, just being aware of it in the background. Something that's purely focused on the architectural design component. A lot of these sort of games get bogged down inside like a Sims game or whatever. I think the idea of it just trying to gamify, you can see from some of the UI elements and all that, maybe it's like, hey, you get X stars for these wall placements and all that. And coming off the back of 2 Point Museum, the idea of sort of an aesthetic reward gameplay loop appeals to me. So we'll probably look at this when it comes out. Speaking of Ambulance Life, I mean, look, I did a video, go check it out. But yeah, my review in short is like 0 out of 10, would recommend. It's dumb, it's broken, but it's actually really fun and original. This actually knocked me off my chair, and I was involved immediately. I was like, what is this? This is a dead-end game. I recognize it, the way that, you know, you're placing people and interacting with the colony. If you're not aware of it, there's Dead in Bermuda, which I don't think I ever played. But Dead in Vinland, that's got to be one of my favorite games over the course of this channel, and, you know, getting into the indie stuff, especially when I was, you know, quite small. That's a great game of, like, trying to build a colony and managing. It's kind of a spreadsheet simulator, right, with some visual novel art. Anyway, I highly recommend it. I think it's great. So this is Dead in Antares, which is the follow-up from Ishtar Games. They've made other stuff. They made The Last Spell, which I didn't really like, but, you know, we're not necessarily going to go into that. But yeah, Dead in Antares. I'm actually pumped. I'll cover that the day it comes out. Right, now we're into the show proper with an actual full trailer. Cthulhu, the Cosmic Abyss. This looks rad. Apparently it's not out to 2026, but still, I'm curious. I don't think I've seen Cthulhu stuff with more of like a sci-fi future bent to it. And look, I'm loath to even mention it, but, you know, the whole black protagonist thing, there's so many examples of the industry getting it wrong and forcing it and it sucking that you kind of have to highlight when it kind of looks cool. This dude looks badass. He looks like the bloody, what's his name? Common, the dude from John Wick that held his own against old Keanu. Anyway, he looks cool. It seems very evocative. There's no bloody footage or anything like that. It's just trailer, you know, masturbatory stuff, which is fine. But yeah, I'm interested. It looks cool. They've got the right sensibilities. It's being devved by Big Bad Wolf, who did The Council way back in the day for probably Focus. God, now you're really testing me. That was cool. I don't know if it will hold up, but it was sort of the beginning of Focus Entertainment exploding into this AA space, because they're one of the really big swingers these days as well. But they also did Vampire Masquerade, Swan Song, some sort of spin-off bloody, I think it's kind of like a Wolf Among Us type kind of thing that no one really played. Again, I didn't play it. You know, if I didn't play it, who else would? I play everything. Anyway, that looks cool. I'm curious. I'm invested. Not the last time we're going to see Cthulhu here. The Fading of Nicole Wilson. Okay, right. So this is under Daedalic as a publisher, which I guess they're owned by Nacon these days. That's good to know. I missed some things, I guess. They publish so much stuff, and some of it's hit and miss, right? It's probably better than 50-50. There's been some really good things come out of Daedalic. Like, I'm pretty sure they did Barotrauma, for example. So it's good to know, I guess, that Nacon's running them. 101 Games, 101 Games, is deving it, and they did The Suicide of Rachel Foster, so I'm sensing a theme. This kind of walking sim narrative nonsense. I think most people slept on that, and it wasn't super well received. I'll be honest, the voice acting in this trailer is just so red flag. I don't know how else to explain it. I think people will understand.
See any footprints around?
Do ghosts leave footprints?
No.
As someone who's already really funny about walking sims, I see them as, honestly, half-assed devs taking a shortcut to try and just vehicle a story to the end user. You know, almost like tourists in the gaming space. They're more interested in writing than gaming. This screams that, to be honest. I don't know, so we'll see. Maybe we'll cover it, but that was there. Whatever. Okay, next, Edge of Memories. It's interesting. I had to think about it, and looking at it, there was something. There was a memory in there. It turns out that these guys, Midgar Studio, did Edge of Eternity, which I had a very brief look at. I'll be honest, I didn't put a lot of time into it, but I don't remember it being terrible. I remember it being kind of a, I don't know, indie Final Fantasy sort of game. It seemed okay. Not exactly sterling and glowing recommendation, but you cover as many games as I do. Sometimes it all just blurs together. So, you know, this looks okay. It looks cool. I like the aesthetic and that. I just checked out Edge of Eternity real quickly, which is getting review bombed for some reason. I'm not sure. Maybe performance issues. I gave it a quick skim. Not clear. But I guess you could go check that out if you find this interesting. Q4 2025? Yeah, okay. Yeah, look, I could look at this. It looks good. But like I said, I totally forgot about the predecessor, so, I mean, what does that say? That might say more about me than anything. Okay, cool. Next, Ravenswatch DLC. Free DLC, from what I gather. Now, look, I covered Ravenswatch. I'm pretty sure I did a worth your time, worth your buy format on it. And I've played more of that since. That game is so good, alright? So you should wishlist it or whatever, pick it up on sale. I wouldn't be surprised if most of these are on sale at the moment to line up with Nacon's bloody showcase thing. But yeah, Ravenswatch is really good. It's made by Pastec Games, who spun out of Focus back in the day and made Curse of the Dead Gods, which, again, also quite excellent. I would recommend them both. They have a lot in common, which is to say they're kinda MOBA-esque in some of their sensibilities. Like, so there's ability interplay and cooldowns to rotate, but much more action combat, dodging telegraphs and that, and very quite tricky and hard. Like the MOBA example is tenuous, but it's, you know, there are some things there, you know, the forced perspective, the art style, the ability bars, but it kind of goes closer, dare I say it, to that action combat that you see in a Souls-like type game. Very rewarding, very fun. The kind of meta component to the runs are great. Like you go around the map and farm different events. You've only got so much clock, so you have to be strategic about it. You level your dude up, you fight a boss, you go on to the next one. So it's a really good roguelike. Ravenswatch very much feels like a great sequel to Curse of the Dead Gods. There's nothing wrong with Dead Gods, but Ravenswatch builds upon it, and it's multiplayer. And this Romeo and Juliet DLC looks like it's co-op only, which is cool and interesting. And I think there's actually a pretty good fan base around Ravenswatch still. So anyway, check it out. I might look into that DLC. I might get someone from my community to jump in with me. I think the idea of a co-op only character pairing is really quite fascinating. And all the characters in the game, at least last time I checked it, were really cool. Like very varied, and it was like a mannequin man doing stuff, and then Red Riding Hood. But anyway, look, I don't want to turn this into a Ravenswatch video. It's cool. You should check it out. Yeah, okay, more hardware. At first I thought this was going to be a racing game. I mean, the racing game's next, funnily enough. I guess that makes sense if you know, slotting your whole show together. But Revosim, I don't know, man. I haven't owned a steering wheel setup since I was like, 10 or something like that. Maybe that's something I should look into, because I like racing games more and more these days, especially with a VR headset. Maybe I'll get this. Maybe I'll talk to Nacon and see if they'll help me out. I don't know. Whatever. I wonder what sort of overlap my audience has with steering wheel rigs. Whatever. But again, interesting. I don't know if they've already set up in the hardware space, or this is them in earnest jumping into it. Interesting to see, I guess. And then there's this, I don't know, Rennsport. I had to really look to figure this out. This already exists. Apparently it launched tail end of last year. I didn't know it existed. It's free. It's early access. It's getting absolutely destroyed in reviews. One of the reviews I just skimmed said it's bad even for free. So mostly negative free games is not really something that gives a lot of hope. I don't know, so go check it out yourself. I don't know if I will. Interesting that Teon is attached to them as a developer. They're the ones that have been doing like RoboCop and Terminator Resistance. So I wonder if maybe they acted in some sort of support aspect. I don't know. Anyway, I guess that game exists, and I guess it's a burning pile, whatever. Oh, speaking of RoboCop, Rogue City, unfinished business. I guess that's a DLC that's coming out later this year. I might reinstall that. I might do a video on it. I don't know if I did it under the previous format. Let me know if you want to see that. Maybe we do some RoboCop. That game slapped. It was very fan service in the best kind of way. Knows its base, knows what we want. You could get critical hits by shooting dudes in the dick, which is very RoboCop on brand. But look, they absolutely nailed it. Terminator Resistance was sort of a cult hit. It didn't really make waves when it came out, but over time I feel like it's earned its cult status, and the dudes handled the Terminator franchise, fairly well, especially for a kind of unknown developer. And so they got given RoboCop, and they did it justice just as much. So unfinished business, this looks cool. Looking at the trailer, it looks like you get to play as Murphy in like a flashback thing or whatever, which is interesting. I wonder how far that gimmick can be taken. It's not really RoboCop at that point, is it? So I feel like it might be good for a flashback level, but hopefully they don't get it wrong. But I think it's safe to assume that they're going to nail it, and it's going to be a DLC worth checking out. I was watching comments on the main trailer for this because I saw it before this expo. Then everyone was like, they should do Dredd next. And I'm like, oh my god, imagine that. Imagine a Judge Dredd game made by Teon. That'd so slap. All right, next up, the Mound, Omen of Cthulhu. Like, Nacon really enjoys their Cthulhu stuff, I guess, which I'm not complaining. So this is that sort of Edge of Discovery, Spanish conquistador type setting. And that appeals to me immensely because it's not something you see very much. What was it? Oh god, now you really tested me. Fountain of Youth? Survival Fountain of Youth? Something like that. Check out it on the channel. I reviewed that. It was like a survival game in this kind of setting. It was really quite brilliant, looking for lost Spanish treasure while pretending to snake bites. But anyway, this looks cool. When they show gameplay, my enthusiasm peels back a little bit. It looks like it's just a 4-player co-op generic game. Having said all of that, I don't know about you guys, but if you get a bunch of 4 blokes together and you play a co-op game that's okay, it doesn't really matter at that point. The fun makes itself. I'm not saying this is going to be bad or that it's a pass if it's bad, but I feel like the scrutinizing eye of someone that's going to play something single player where it's just them and their thoughts versus beer with the boys, we maybe give a bit more leeway. Looks like maybe you can get like a horror possession thing where you can shoot friendlies because they look like enemies. 'Cause I guess that's cool. It's made by Ace Team. I looked them up. Rock of Ages, I never really got into that bit of a gimmick game. However, they did The Eternal Cylinder, which is such a clever and innovative and just wildly unusual game. I should go back and check that out. But yeah, check that out. Eternal Cylinder. So the fact that it's the guys who made Eternal Cylinder makes me interested immediately because I like their pedigree. They did something else. Clash, Artifacts of Chaos. I didn't even know about it. Didn't know it exists. Came out mid last year. Maybe I'll go back and have a look at it. Yeah, more Cthulhu, co-op Left 4 Dead gameplay. Okay, yeah, that sounds good. We'll check that out. Dragonkin the Banished. Now, this is a good thing that I changed my format because the devs sent me a key for this. It's sitting in my inbox right now. I'm probably going to do a video in the next couple of days because it looks cool, but it's early access. And when I was doing the reviews, there wasn't really room for me to cover early access. So especially, drop a comment if you made it this far and you're interested. There is a chance I'll cover it anyway. But I don't really know much about this other than it's out now. You can check it out yourself. Kind of looks cool. Maybe some sort of rogue-like bloody Diablo ARPG. I can't quite tell what it's going for, but I guess I'll find out myself and let you know if you just hang around for a couple of days. Yeah, so Test Drive Unlimited. I guess they're doing a new season or something. That got absolutely maligned and smashed at launch. I didn't mind it. I did an overview. I kind of liked it. It felt like Test Drive. I remember playing one on the island and you cruise around and it's kind of bland and open world but I just do not know how to explain it. I still like it, even though, again, if you want to hold it to a critical fire, you'd go, yeah, it's bland, it feels a bit empty, but it almost feels like that by design, going off the previous Test Drive Unlimited. I'm not trying to carry water, but my point is that the faults that people point out are true, and yet it's still, with those, it feels like what I perceive to be a Test Drive Unlimited game. So I liked what I played of it. It seemed fine, to be honest. Kind of chill, kind of relaxing. Not, Need for Speed running from cops with music blaring, but you also, going to nightclubs and picking up missions and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, for a pretty low-key racing style game that's not necessarily about racing, it's more about fashion and drip. I don't know, maybe get it on a super deep sale and make up your own mind. But they made a long trailer in this presentation for what is ultimately just a seasonal upgrade. So I look at things like that and I go, I wonder how much Nacon was really banking on that popping off and they're trying to recoup as opposed to bury it, because it seems like a lot of effort for something that's not even really like DLC or new release content or anything. I feel like it was their pride and joy, and they totally misjudged the market and it bombed terribly. But anyway, I think it was fun for what it was, so maybe check it out. What is this weird shit? Now, I recognise that Lachlan dude. I think he's an Australian YouTuber and he's pretty big in the Fortnite circuit. But yeah, Nacon's French, aren't they? So why is this bloody ad full of Australian? I'm an Australian. I'm an Australian gamer. I don't know who any of these blokes are. Sorry, dudes. No offense. They probably don't know who I am, so that's fair enough. But like, niche within niche? Whatever. But apparently, I guess they're an esports team and they have an official rig or something like that. But I don't understand. It's some sort of hardware partnership, but I feel like that confused Simpsons meme where I don't understand if that's what the ad is. So, okay, that's good for you. It probably cost them most of the money that went into making this presentation. What's this? The Occultist. All right, published by Dataleak again, another hit and miss scenario. Let's throw it at the wall and see what sticks. Developed by Daylor. I looked them up. I don't think they've done anything, so who knows? There might be a new studio brought on or an internal thing stood up. But this trailer doesn't give much away other than, I don't know, I guess maybe Dataleak's just making more muted walking sim type games. It's tough. It's tough to really know, but again, maybe a yellow flag? Something about this doesn't quite look great to me. But yeah, that's about all I can say on it. Okay, cool. Next, Styx, Blades of Greed. I wonder how many Styx games there are now. So he's this sort of like edgy, in a way, a spiritual successor to something like Sonic the Hedgehog, right? Love it or hate it. He's a bit of an edgelord goblin. I guess he's got magic these days, but he's been in a few different games. And I've never played any of them, but it does sit in that sort of AA junk food space, which I really do enjoy, right? I like those sort of games, so I should make an effort and maybe check out the old ones. I think Styx originally was a spin-off And he was from, oh God, was it of Orcs and Men? I think that was the name of the game, where he was sort of like a B character, or it was a two-man show and he was one of the characters, and then it turned into a whole series. Anyway, this looks cool, man. It looks like something that would appeal to me and probably the community. If you've got anything to say, say it. It's made by Cyanide, which at this point, I assume they're kind of a first-party Nacon studio. They've been doing a lot of stuff for them, Space Hulk Tactics, Call of Cthulhu game, and the Chef Life game, which I mentioned as well, Blood Bowl, that sort of stuff. So they do a lot of stuff for them. But yeah, maybe we'll try and squeeze in a space to have a look at Styx, or at least we'll look at this when it comes out, I reckon. Right, and so this is their crowning jewel of the entire thing, Hell Is Us, and I think it's well-deserved. This looks really, really cool, and I don't really know if a lot of people have caught on to this yet. It's been on my radar for a little bit now. I really hope it does build momentum, but you can just tell by the framing, this is their sort of closing out finale trailer. They're putting a lot of eggs in this. At first blush, I was like, oh, is this a Death Stranding ripoff? Because it's going for a bit of an absurdist, wild world with this dude in a, raincoat cruising around, but I think it sort of stops and ends there. It looks like it's totally original under its own steam. Everything about it just really appeals to me. Aspects of the combat and, the melee especially makes me think more of things like The Surge than something like Dark Souls, and The Surge, I mean, that's under what, Deck 13, under Focus, I guess? But the same sort of idea, this double A in-between games that have a lot of love go into them. Anyway, so it really looks cool. There seems to be like dialogue and RPG opponents in the Wasteland that kind of remind me, funnily enough, of like the Wasteland 3 game. So there's a lot of cool inspiration and moving parts in here, and it just looks wildly original and interesting, and, I'm pretty pumped. Yeah, but one of the wildest things of all is that it's being developed by Rogue Factor, who did the Mordheim and Necromunda games recently, which those tabletops, by the way, are near and dear to my heart, and they're both kind of janky messes, right? Mordheim, in a way, was ahead of its time. I think it's kind of aged and dated a little bit, so it's cool what they did, but I don't think it really will hold up quite so well these days. And the Necromunda Underhive Wars was almost great, but they did something weird with the AI. They broke it, and essentially it was like playing lobotomized dudes that would run into walls, and it was unpleasant. Which is such a shame, because if I recall, as biased as I am and really wanted a Necromunda warband game to work, everything else about it seemed to work. It's just, the enemy didn't shoot at you because it was too dumb. So look, I don't know, man. They've got some promising stuff there in their back catalogue that they've worked on. However, disappointing is an understatement for me personally. So I really hope they nail it with Hell Is Us. And that's coming out later this year, and you better believe we will be covering that. Anyway, look, like I said, I promised shorter form content when pivoting across, but this is a bit of a special edition. We're covering, bloody 20 games or something over the course of a show. I'll chop this up, edit it, put it together, and put it up. You guys let me know what you reckon, if you like this. If this is something that I do more often in the future, it's only going to be around these specific festivals, of which there will probably only be half a dozen a year anyway. So this is very special edition. So this is not the rhythm for us to get comfortable and used to going forward. Anyway, team, might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.